Hello everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for stopping by. Now today I'm doing part 1 of the 10 cards 1 kit using the February 2018 My Monthly Hero kit. And I have to tell you, I love this kit. This kit is fantastic. I'm not sure if the kits are still available. If they are, I will leave links below in the description area. But don't let these solid images intimidate you, because at first that's what I thought. I thought, oh my goodness, but these are so fun. This is your stamp set. I love it also because there's 15 different sentiments, which is perfect, especially for 10 cards. Each of the images, every single one of them in the stamp set has a coordinating die. From the itty bitty butterflies to the flowers, just everything has a die for that. And then there's also 3 more extra dies. You get this fun layering little nest die, a leaf die, and then you also get a little egg die that got lost when I was cutting all of my dies out. Okay, now you get 2 of each of the wood grain cardstock. The light one is called Stone, and then the darker one is called Babinga. Beautiful cardstock. And then you get 2 of these itty bitty grapevine wreaths. So fun. They're a little bit bigger than a quarter. Not too bulky for a card. I mean, I'm sure you'll need extra postage if you're going to mail these, and probably padding too, but these little wreaths are so pretty. You get 3 ink cubes, feather, robin's egg, and nest. And then this is the ribbon that everything came wrapped up in. It matches that robin's egg really pretty. So that's everything that came in the kit, and we're going to push it aside and just jump in and get started with our first card. Now for card number 1, I'm taking a stitched rectangle die and I'm cutting out a panel with the wood grain. This is the stone colored wood grain cardstock. This panel is 3.5 inches by 4 3/4. I'm going to set that aside and do some stamping. So I'm going to grab my mini misti and a piece of white cardstock. I'm going to place that in there, and I'm going to stamp the leaf branch image. It's a branch with leaves on it. It's really pretty. And how I'm going to color this in is I'm going to take the nest colored ink and go over the branches only. I'm going to close the door of my misti and stamp that. I'm going to clean off my stamp, and then I'm going to go in with the feather colored ink and color in those leaves. The feather color is a green ink, and it creates a real pretty branch. And I'm actually going to do this twice. I'm going to flip my cardstock over and do it again. I want 2 of those branches, but it's really fun. Now there's a little heart in the stamp set, so I'm going to grab a pink ink from my stash. This is a Cotton Candy Hero Hue, real pretty pink, and I'm going to stamp the heart 5 times. And once we have that done, I'm going to grab a little birdie. I want a smaller birdie, so I think this one's going to look nice. I'm just going to place this one on my block. And how this is so fun for me. This is what I really enjoy doing. Now I'm taking the ink cube and I'm stamping the bird with the robin's egg. I'm cleaning off my stamp, and then I'm going to ink up just a partial part of the stamped image with the nest color ink, and I'm going to go directly on top of it. Now you could use your mini misti to do this, but I wanted to see how easy it would be to do it without the misti, and it works perfectly without it. It's very, very easy to line up. I just added some feather, the green ink, and then I'm going to go back over the entire bird back with the robin's egg colored ink, and it creates a gradient little bird, and I love that effect. I think it looks so neat. So I'm going to take the coordinating dies, and I'm going to cut out all of my images, and then we're going to build our little scene. I'm going to take some Nouveau Deluxe adhesive, and I'm taking one of the branches, and I'm going to glue that directly on my panel here, kind of towards the top. And then I do have a little bit of excess hanging over, so I'll just take my scissors and trim that off. And then for the second branch, I wanted it to be lifted up a little bit, so I'm going to take some foam squares. I'm just going to trim them down a little bit so they'll fit on that branch. Add them to the back there. And I'm not going to secure it down to my panel yet, because I'm just trying to figure out where I'm going to put it. That way I know where to put my sentiment. Now I didn't know how the sentiment was going to stamp on the wood grain cardstock, so I'm using my mini misti for that. I'm going to doctor it up with my anti-static powder tool, and then for my first sentiment, I'm going to use the one that says sending hugs. I'm going to stamp it with my Versa marking, and it stamped well the first time. I didn't even have to do it again, but sometimes I do overkill. So I stamped it again, and it worked out great. I'm going to grab some scratch paper, and then just using my Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail White embossing powder, I'm going to go over my sentiment. I'm going to go ahead and melt that embossing powder. And I love the way the white looks against that stone colored cardstock. Real pretty. Okay, now I'm going to take my popped up branch here, and I'm just going to place that pretty close to my sentiment and trim off that large end there. And then I'm going to add some foam tape behind my bird, and then also each one of those little hearts. I love the colors of the inks in this kit, and I think the pink for my stash, when you add it to it, it just adds a real softness to it. So I was really excited about the colors. I just arranged my hearts and my little bird around my little scene here. I think that looks real fun. Now, since there were a lot of white edges, I decided to take my white gel pen, and I'm just adding little splashes of white along the bird and then around the little hearts, and also a few dots around the leaves, just kind of to tie everything in together. And then once I have that done, we're going to flip over this panel, and I'm going to add some foam tape behind it. I think that looks so cute. I'm going to place this on a standard size A2 size card base, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I think that looks so fun. Here's a close-up. Okay, now for card number 2, I'm taking, this is the Babinga. I hope I'm saying that right. It's kind of fun to say, but I'm taking the darker wood grain cardstock that came in the kit, and I'm going to cut out 3 little tiles that are 1 1/2 inches square. Next, I'm going to take my We Are Memory corner chomper, and I am going to corner around each of those squares. I'm going to do each corner, and I'm using the 1/2 inch side. Once we have that done, I'm going to take my anti-static powder tool and go over the centers of those. We're going to do some embossing on here. So I decided to use the small feather. There's 3 feathers in the stamp set, so this is the smallest one. And I'm going to stamp it with my Versamark ink. I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of a silver accent against this brown cardstock. And so it's stamped beautifully with the Versamark. Since there's a little bit of texture to that cardstock, it did stamp real well. After I have that done, I'm going to go in with my silver embossing powder and go over each of my little feathers there. I went ahead and melted that embossing powder, and now I'm just rubbing off the powder that was left on the cardstock there. Okay, now we're going to do some stamping again. I'm going to take that same feather die or stamp there, and I'm going to go over it with the feather colored ink, and then I'm going to add a little bit of the robin's egg and a little bit of the nest colored. So there's 3 different colors, but they blend so pretty together. I love that outcome. So I'm going to do it 3 times. So I have 3 different leaves, and each time that I'm stamping, I'm kind of shifting the ink in different spots, so each of the feathers are different, and I just love the outcome of this. This was so fun for me to do. Well, on my, was it my next card? On one of my cards, I kind of got a little carried away and kind of went crazy with my stamping, but My feathers are done, so I'm going to take the coordinating dies and I'm just going to cut those out. But they look so pretty. Oh, you know what? I took my Versa marker. I wanted to add little silver accents to the edges of those feathers. So I'm just running it around the edges, and then I'm going to go over the top of that with my silver embossing powder. I didn't go too heavy. I just went really light-handed around the edges. I didn't want to cover up the color of those feathers. I thought they were just too pretty. I melted that, and then there you can see how soft that looks. This is going to be a get well card, so I thought the softness would really be pretty. So I cut out my leaves, and now I'm going to layer them on my little tiles there. I'm just going to pop them up, and I just wanted a little bit of that silver embossed leaf on the tile to show through. So I'm just adding some foam squares behind there and adding them to each one of those tiles. And you know what? Again, my lighting is not that great, guys, but if you visit Instagram or my blog, the pictures will be a lot nicer, and you can really see the detail and the color of these cards. Okay, next I cut out a panel. The panel is 3.5 inches by 4 3/4, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment directly on that panel. Now this is the Get Well card, so I'm going to stamp the sentiment here that says "Feel Better Soon." And I'm just going to use the Nest colored ink. Lovely. I'm just going to flip it over, add some foam tape behind there, and go ahead and adhere that to my card base. Once in a while, well, you guys always see me open up my card bases. I do that because there's been a few times where I've actually adhered my panel upside down, and so I'd had to ruin my card base, so I always check now. But I have it the right way, and so I'm just going to pop up my little tiles with foam squares and place that on my card base. Now for bells and whistles, this is Duck Egg Blue Nouveau Crystal Drops. I'm just going to add a few drops here and there to bring out that blue and those feathers. And that completes that card. I think it turned out real soft and very, very pretty. Oh no, I guess that's not it. I did add some shimmer with my Wink Estella. This is a clear glitter pen. It's really nice. But that completes it. And that's card number 2. Okay, we're going to move along to card number 3. I'm taking the Robin's Egg ink and I'm going to smear it across a piece of white cardstock. Now, I didn't care that you could see the cardstock behind it, so it was kind of splotchy basically. I didn't mind that. I kind of liked it because we're going to create some little robin eggs. Now to create the dots on the robin's eggs, I'm going to grab some acrylic paint. This is just brown acrylic, cheapy acrylic paint. I'm going to add some water to it and thin it out, and then using my paintbrush I'm going to tap it and then add some splatters directly on top of that that robin's egg ink that we smeared all over the cardstock. Now I'm doing this on this is my brand new Tonic Studios, my Tim Holtz glass craft mat. Loving it. Oh my gosh, it wipes up so nice. So if you're looking for a new craft mat, this is lovely. Next, I did some splattering on my panel. My panel is 3.5 inches by 4 3/4. And we're going to set that aside to dry. Once this is dry, I'm going to take the nest too. I'm going to adhere that to the top part of my cardstock. And I'm going to cut out 5 eggs. Okay. Now the detail in this nest is so fun. I like the fact that it opens up and you can tuck the eggs inside of it. I thought that was so neat. But we want to color that. So what we're going to do is grab the Nest colored ink, and I'm just taking the ink pad to the paper and I'm smearing it across the top part of it. Once we have that done, I'm going to go in with the feather colored ink. It's a real pretty green. Add some green in there. And I like that effect, but I wanted to soften it a little bit, so I thought, you know what, let's make it a whitewash. We're going to make it a whitewashed bird nest. So this is a unicorn ink from Hero Arts. It's real pretty pigment ink, so it does stay wet a little bit, but I'm just taking the ink pad and going over the nest and each of the eggs to give it like a whitewash look, and I really like that effect. Once we have that done, I think my panel is just about dry, but I decided to go ahead and use the Babinga wood grain cardstock and cut out 2 of those leaves with that one die. I needed some branches for this nest to sit on. I just didn't want it floating in the air. Now this is going to be a congrats card, so I'm going to take that sentiment, ink it up with the robin egg blue ink, stamp that. Lovely. I'm going to flip over my nest and add some foam tape behind it, or some foam squares. Now I'm just going to add it to the very bottom of my nest because I want to be able to tuck my eggs inside the nest. I'm going to place that back on my panel. I'll grab my little eggs and I'm going to pop each one of those up with some foam squares. And I'm just going to tuck them inside my little basket. Well, I call it a basket, but it's a nest. I'm thinking Easter. This would make a cute little Easter basket. Okay. Just tucking, I tucked one behind it and then a couple on the inside. Just kind of arranging it to where it looks the nicest. And I think that looks great. Okay, now we're going to adhere our little branches. That way it's not a floating nest. I'm just using my glue to adhere my branches. That one I tucked underneath, and then this one I'm going to place almost as if it was on top. So the leaves are going over the top of the nest. And then I didn't like that placement of the first one, so I'm going to carefully remove that, add a little more glue, and just kind of reposition it to where it looks nicer. And I like that better. I'm going to flip over my panel and add some foam tape behind it, and then I'm going to go ahead and adhere that directly in the center of my card base. And I think that would be a real fun congratulations card. Love that. I'm just taking my craft pick and I'm lifting up those little itty bitty leaves, and then I'm going to take the nest colored ink and just lightly, carefully go over the top parts, bringing in a little bit more of the brown. But that is my whitewashed little birdie nest. I think it turned out real fun. Okay, now we're going to move along to card number 4. I grabbed 3 of the smaller birds in the stamp set. And here's where I went stamp crazy. I just had so much fun stamping these birds. I mean, color choices, go through your inks and smush away because it was so fun. For the first one, I'm going in with the robin's egg, and then this is actually a color that came in a kit from last year. It's a real pretty blue, darker blue. I'm going to add some to the bottom of my bird. I'm going over the feet of all the birds with the nest colored ink, and I'm just going to stamp it, and I think that looks so fun. Now, this is my stamp cleaner. It's a Ranger water-based stamp cleaner. It smells so good. It smells like bubble gum, but it works great to clean your stamps off, guys. But I cleaned it off, or grabbed another one, and I'm just going to ink up my birdie with one of the colors. For this one, I decided to bring in some pale tomato, going over the bottom part of the birdie. Going over the legs with the nest colored ink that came in the kit, and I'm just going to stamp it. I did add a little bit more of the robin's egg, but it creates some fun images, fun little birds. I actually stamped 8 of them. I just played. By the time I was finished, I picked out 4 birds that I wanted to use for my next card. I kind of wanted a few different colors, so I did bring in different inks for my stash. But I think they look so neat. Okay, I'm going to die. Each of the birds came with a coordinating die, so I'm just going to cut them all out. And then I'm just going to arrange them on my mat the way I think I would want them on my card. Kind of tucking them under each other. Okay. Now, I decided to stamp another branch. This time I didn't use my mini misti. I just used the brown ink and the green ink and went directly on top of my acrylic block with it. And I actually am doing it, I stamped the green ink first and then went over with the brown ink for the branch. And it worked out perfect. I like the outcome. I'm going to cut these out. And then I'm also going to grab the stone colored cardstock. I'm going to take the largest stitched rectangle die that I have. This is going to leave me a little border around my card base. And then I'm going to take a circle die and cut out a window. That was too big. I'm going to take a smaller one. Place it towards the top and cut this out all at once along with the branches. Now I did go ahead and pop up all of my little birdies with foam tape. Now I'm going to go ahead and arrange my little scene. I'm going to just take my glue and glue my branches directly on this panel towards the bottom of my window there. This one I kind of flipped upside down. I'm going to add a little bit more toward the end so it stays put. Lovely. Now, I want to stamp my sentiment directly on my card base. So I'm going to grab my card base and place my panel directly on top of it. And then I'm kind of going to arrange my birds the way I think that they would look pretty on the card. This way I kind of have an idea where to put my sentiment. For the sentiment for this card, I thought it would be really fun to put chirping you on. So I'm just going to stamp it on my scratch paper first to make sure it stamps well. And then I'm going to use the Nest colored ink. Stamp that right above the bird there, centering my panel. And then in the stamp set, there's these itty bitty music notes, and I thought they would go perfect around my sentiment. So I'm going to just take that same ink and stamp a few of those music notes on the inside of my window there. Now I'm going to take my panel and carefully lift it up and then add some foam tape behind it. My birds are popped up with foam tape, but I didn't press down. So I'm just going to position where I want them to go and then press everything down. And with a little bit of shimmer, I'm going to go in with my Wink of Stella shimmer pen. And then I did dot the eyes of the birds with a black marker. But that's it. That's it for that card. I think it's real fun. Okay, for my final card today, I cut out a 3.5 inch by 4 3/4 inch panel using white cardstock. Now, I'm taking this bird as an image in the stamp set. It almost looks like a dove. It's really pretty. And I thought before I did some stamping with that, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. So for my sentiment for this card, I wanted to use Spread Your Wings. I'm going to use the Nest colored ink. And I'm going to stamp that directly on my panel. A little bit towards the top. Now I'm going to take the bird. I'm going to ink it up with my Versamark ink. And I'm going to stamp this bird around the entire panel. That's why I wanted to stamp my sentiment first. Is that way I would have a spot for it. And I'm just kind of turning the bird so it's kind of all different directions. I went over my panel with some Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail White embossing powder. And then I'm just going to go ahead and melt that. You can't see where I stamped because it's white on white. I'm just making sure there's no embossing powder on my sentiment. But I'm going to go ahead and melt that. And you can kind of see where the bird was stamped, kind of all over. Okay, now I'm going to take the robin's egg ink, and I have to tell you that And I'm taking my ink blending tool. This ink blends so well. I have to say, this is not even my Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. This is my regular Cougar Digital. It's my heavyweight cardstock. But this ink blends really well on it. And I'm going really heavy with the ink on the edges and kind of fading up towards the sentiment. And I think that turned out so pretty. Now I wanted to use this little grapevine wreath, but I wanted it hanging, so I have a piece of jute cord that coordinates pretty close to the color of the wreath. I just wrapped it around, and then what I'm going to do is take some glue dots. These are really big glue dots. I'm going to take 2 of them, put them behind my wreath, and then that way it's going to be stuck to my panel really nicely. I'm going to flip it over and just stick it down toward the bottom, and then I'm going to untwist my little strings, and then I'm going to wrap it around the back and pop that up with foam tape and place it on my card base. And I think that looks so fun. I did double up on the twine and then created a bow with it, and then I'm going to adhere that to the top of the wreath with a glue dot. I'm just going to trim the tails of my bow there. For bells and whistles, I'm going in with some sparkling clear sequins. I'm going to add just a few here and there, and I think this turned out so pretty. I think it looks like the birds are kind of floating up in the sky or in the clouds. But that's card number 5. Here's a quick look at all 5 cards that I made today. I hope this gives you some ideas and inspiration on the February My Monthly Hero Kit. Again, I'll leave links below to where you can check everything out, guys. This was such a fun kit. I can't wait to do part 2. But I wish you a fantastic day, and we will see you soon for part 2. Bye-bye, guys.